And now, from the CFTK-TV studios, this is Open Connection with your host, Robert Pictou.
Welcome to Open Connection, my host Robert Pictou. Our show today comes to you from the traditional and unceded territory of the Sipscant people. The small-scale salvage program is the only form of tenure available to the small market logger, where the focus of the harvest must be on small, isolated patches of timber that are dead or in danger of being significantly reduced in value, lost, or destroyed, or could be otherwise not be harvested. On today's Open Connection, we open our archives to bring you this story from 2000.
These Burns-like loggers out on the road should be at work right now. Instead, they're out protesting small-scale salvage rates. While that may seem like it has nothing to do with an epidemic beetle infestation in the area, it has everything to do with it. Community Forests President Cliff Manning says the provincial government was supposed to issue salvage rates in August, but that never happened. And when the rates were finally issued, they were too high to allow local loggers to harvest the beetle-infested wood.
They came out with some tentative numbers back in beginning of October. The numbers were way too high. Stumpages were projected in the neighborhood of $25 a cubic meter. Now, for some, they might recognize that as a fairly good stumpage rate, but when you look at small-scale salvage, where some of these operators are going back a kilometer back into the forest and selectively harvesting the timber, individually taking out the trees, it's a very, very expensive, very time-consuming operation, and that's why when we look at the stumpages, we need stumpage rates in the neighborhood of around $10 a cubic meter.
We've been fighting with Victoria and trying to get these rates from Revenue Branch since July and August, and this is what it's slowly evolved to, is this sort of public thing, which none of us are really experienced or used to doing. This is not the type of thing we normally do. We're usually out working this time of year.
So local forest companies and loggers have taken to the streets, and they emphasize that if the rates are not lowered soon and they don't begin harvesting, the beetle population will explode next year, and thousands of additional hectares of forest will fall victim to the tiny menaces.
Every day that we wait for these rates is another day where we don't harvest, and a lot of these gentlemen that are here, husbands, families, they're all loggers. A lot of them are loggers, and they need these rates to work. And a lot of these people are having to sit at home and wait, and the wood is out there. We don't harvest that wood. Next summer, the beetles will fly, and our beetle infest becomes worse. It is already epidemic in the forests of British Columbia, especially in this part of the province, and we have to get out there and harvest the beetle wood.
And this is what they look like. These are specimens the Smithers Forest Service has preserved. These are spruce bark beetles. Their cousins, the mountain pine beetles, look much the same. This is what is damaging and killing trees in more than 7,000 sites near Burns Lake. You can see how tiny they are. More than half a dozen of them make up the size of a quarter. And this is the damage they cause to the trees. Bug expert or forest entomologist Ken White explains.
Well, basically, both those species of beetle, mountain pine beetle and spruce beetle, they both kill the trees. And they both kill the trees in a similar sort of way by burrowing underneath the bark and laying their eggs, and then the young beetles feed underneath the bark and girdle the tree. And at the same time that the adult beetles enter the tree and lay their eggs, they bring along with them a fungus, which is inoculated into the tree and then is spread throughout the tree by the movement of the sap in the tree. And that cuts off the circulation system within the tree and kills the tree.
White says hundreds of these beetles can attack a tree, usually a mature, older tree. And if the tree isn't identified and cut down in the winter, the beetles will lay their eggs and thousands more will flourish the next year. White agrees that the problem has gotten out of control.
Well, I definitely think that the beetles have reached a population size where there's no possibility that they can be controlled by any sort of natural predators. They've reached a population where the only thing that can really have an effect on seriously reducing their populations is going to be climate, cold weather, snap early in the year, early in the winter, or later in the winter, in the early springtime.
And back in Burns Lake, out in the forest, Miles Fuller demonstrates exactly what many woodlot owners and loggers have to deal with on a daily basis.
You can see these little patches or little piles of pitch here. when the beetle bores into the tree tries to push him out, and it tries to do it by producing pitch, and that's why these little pitch tubes are out here. So this is actually a tree that actually has beetles in it now. You can see a pitch tube here, see another one here and here. They're all around the base of the tree here. So this thing actually has beetles in it now. So if you give us a sec here, we'll chop into it and find some.
Just be careful. You can get those fingers.
Open Connection will be right back after these messages. And now, from the CFTK-TV studios, this is Open Connection with your host, Robert Pictou.
Thank you for staying with us. It is believed that musical training helps develop the left side of the brain. Unsurprisingly, this is the part of the brain that's concerned with processing language. Exposing children to music programs actually helps to wire the circuitry in the brain to recognize and imprint familiar sounds. Let us return to the archives with Upland School Band, but first, Miles Fuller shows us a Beetle gallery.
Okay, here, see this little pitch tube, this little tunnel here? This is actually the gallery that the beetle digs. He bores in and he digs up, and then he lays eggs off in these little side galleries. And when those hatch, then they finish eating the cambium layer of the tree, and it kills it.
And that?
That's a spruce beetle. And there's probably several thousand of them in this tree. And when they hatch out in the spring, there'll be probably 5 times that many come out.
And those little guys are part of the huge problem in the forest here, huh?
They're it. Yeah, they are it. But that's the problem. And he's just a tiny little thing, really.
And that problem is what is affecting almost 2.5 million cubic meters of local forest. Manning says the allowable cut for the year is only 1.5 million cubic meters. So even if they were able to work with the stumpage rates as they stand, they couldn't harvest all of the wood. But Manning emphasizes the longer they wait for rates, the less they can cut, the more the local economy is affected, and the worse the beetle infestation gets.
If they're not lowered, people just can't go back to work. It's plain and simple. The unemployment will increase, and the beetles, the flights will be exponential. The mountain pine beetle in this district is growing, and spruce bark beetle is one that's come online this coming year, and it's really serious.
And so they take the action they feel is necessary, a protest in front of the local forestry office, to get as much attention as possible for their cause. Manning says as long as Victoria does not respond to them, they will continue to garner as much community and local government support as they can. And they hope that soon they can get to work, battling the beetles that continue to ravage their forests.
Robin Hollett is leading 44 kids through their first weeks of band at Uplands Elementary School. The kids fill 2 classes, each meeting twice a week early in the morning before school starts. Some already take piano or guitar lessons, but they're enthusiastic about joining band.
And why have you joined the band?
Because all my brothers did it, and I think it'd be fun to play with more people instead of just practicing by yourself. Well, it's fun playing with other people, and you can talk to people, and it's more fun than just playing by yourself.
We've learned about 2 pages of music so far, so I like that we're moving along. Okay. And what's your sort of ultimate ambition, I guess, for this year?
To play the whole book.
Kids know music is fun and band can teach them a lot. Parents and teachers and other adults know it too.
I think it provides a sense of belonging to a band, which is not just like being in a classroom that you're assigned to. Of course, it provides greater musical education. I think it also provides different opportunities for learning self-discipline, which are also important. So I think it, besides just enhancing the music education of the kids, it benefits generally in other educational areas as well.
The major benefit, of course, is that they learn music, and that's a method of expressing yourself other than in language, and so that's great. But it also teaches them other skills. They They learn perseverance. They learn how to take something complicated, break it down into smaller pieces, and learn the whole, you know. It helps them with spatial reasoning and with math skills.
The Dare to Dream Foundation, a new private organization in Terrace, is the reason why these students are enjoying band again this fall. 2 years ago, the school board cut grade 6 and 7 band, much to the dismay of the community.
There's no funding especially for elementary band. So to get money for elementary band, we have to have extra. And we didn't have it. We were hit with a couple of things at the same time, amalgamation costs and declining enrollment. So the timing of the cut in the elementary band, I think, was because we were trying to get rid of a deficit, but it was going to be something that would be extremely hard to continue because we just wouldn't be getting as much money from the ministry.
The fate of elementary band was lamented at the annual Music Festival Gala in Terrace this past spring, and that got Donna Ziegler thinking about what it would take to restore it.
Open Connection will be right back after these messages. And now, from the CFTK-TV studios, this is Open Connection with your host, Robert Pictou.
That's my daughter, Candace. What you see is a little girl playing on a piano, completely content and enjoying herself. What we can't see is right now at this very second, her brain is lighting up like a Christmas tree in areas of the brain responsible for problem solving, making predictions, and paying attention. In fact, thanks to a Stanford study, children who study a musical instrument are more likely to excel in all of their studies, work better in teams, have enhanced critical thinking skills, stay in school, and pursue further education. Yet despite this information, music programs are constantly in danger of being cut from schools all over the country due to school budgets that forever seem to shrink. Did you know that schools with music programs have an average of 90.2% graduation rate and a 93.9% attendance rate, compared to schools without music education, which average 72.9% graduation and 84.9% in attendance?
Welcome back to Open Connection. The Dare to Dream Foundation provides support for grade 6 and 7 band programs and students by providing financial support for children who want to play an instrument but cannot afford rental costs. Let us return to the archives with Donna Ziegler.
I said, you know, $60,000. If you found 60 people, that's $1,000 each. If you found 600 people, that's $100 each. And if you found 1,200 people, that's $50 each. I said, this is doable.
As it turns out, Ziegler says offering grade 7 band in Terrace and Thornhill will really cost only $21,000. That's partly because it's strictly extracurricular, and the bandmasters don't fall under a union contract. Robin Hollett has already been teaching music in Terrace schools for 4 years now. She continued Uplands Band last year as a volunteer.
The ultimate goal, I think, for all the band teachers and parents here is to have a school-run band program within the timetable. But I think at this point, everyone is just grateful that there is something for the grade 7 students. And do I have any qualms? My preference would be if the school board would be offering this program again, but I just feel so strongly that music should be offered to kids that I'm happy to be able to provide it in any way that I can.
So what are the chances of the school district funding elementary band again?
I'm not optimistic about that at all. Our economy isn't great, and I don't know if it would be a high priority item. I think there's going to be more emphasis on literacy and technology education than band, and I'm sorry about that, but that's sort of my sense about where different governments would be going.
I would hope that eventually music will be offered again in grade 6 and grade 7 and back within the school system. That is our dream. Like in an ideal world, it would be funded by the school board. But If that's not the case, I feel very strongly that children shouldn't suffer.
Ziegler and others note the impact of losing elementary band would be felt later as well in the junior and senior high schools.
It would be a huge impact. The numbers would be drastically reduced. It's so much easier for kids to start at grade 6 or grade 7. When you're talking 13, 14-year-old kids, it's harder to begin something new. And when they're going to Skeena anyway, and there's so many new things there, new choices, or Thornhill Junior, I think that you will get less students picking music at that level, and they'll be 2 years behind. We've had incredibly strong performing groups come out of Skeena and Caledonia and Thornhill in this town, and if you don't have the grade 6-7 program, those kids will be 2 years behind what we've been used to here.
The foundation is hoping the Christmas season and the lure of a tax deduction will prompt Terrace area residents to contribute to the band program in the next few months. It's also planning a benefit concert in February. The foundation needs enough money by June to cover next year's bands. It would like to restore grade 6 band too, and to establish an endowment to make the funding self-perpetuating. Before June, these kids have a lot to do too. They've got basic technique on their instruments to master, and they're getting lessons in performance etiquette, lifting their instruments in unison and sitting up straight.
That's really important because if you're just like sagging down, then it doesn't look right when you're playing.
And there's a good chance the kids will get to show off their new skills in the coming month. They're practicing jingle bells now for a Christmas concert, perhaps.
Open Connection will be right back after these messages. And now, from the CFTK-TV studios, this is Open Connection with your host, Robert Pictou.
BC's Big Backyard inspires introspective personal journeys and unbridled adventures. Our cities, set on the doorstep of the wild, make it easy to step into nature and explore the endless possibilities of the outdoors. Our people connect with explorers of unexpected moments that renew the human spirit. In this final segment of Open Connection, we return to the archives with Steve Smith of Tourism BC.
Transportation and its relation to the tourism industry was the hot topic at the annual general meeting of the Northern BC Tourism Association recently. Tourism officials and operators would like to see improvements in some key areas, namely air service, especially in light of recent decreases.
In Prince Rupert and the Smithers, the liftoff capacity has been decreased by over 50%. So it's very difficult for operators to get seats on the aircraft to fill their fishing lodges or to move people efficiently around the region.
On top of decreases to rural BC, Smith says only 40% of the international airlines have landing rights in Vancouver, thus limiting the number of people coming in from outside of the province. He says Tourism BC and the Council of Tourism Associations has been working together on building a business case for Air Canada to improve services.
We've commissioned a very large report that documents all the air service the way it was a year ago and the way it is now in the province of British Columbia on an airport by airport basis. We've presented that report to the Minister of Transport, and we've presented that report to Air Canada. And we see this as an ongoing report because we've got to study this thing for the next 2 or 3 years to ensure we get the levels of service we're required to do business.
Due to complaints over its recent merger with Canadian Regional Airlines, Air Canada has implemented a 180-day plan to improve weak links in service. Smith says it's got to come sooner.
We're saying to them, some of our operators can't wait 180 days. We need the service now. We've got to have a service return to levels that are reasonable. And certainly some of the cutbacks that have happened in the province of British Columbia have not been reasonable, and that's been demonstrated now.
The Northwest has another option to improve air services, and that is to bring in competition for Air Canada. Terrace already has a second option in the newly launched Hawk Air. The other airports are looking at carriers like WestJet, which currently services Prince George.
Certainly the region, Prince Rupert, Terrace, Kitimat, Sandspit, we're not here yet. We don't think that we provide any service that is close to being here, so we expect we will be. A time frame, we don't know yet. We add one airplane at a time, and we look and analyze all the markets as we grow.
However, in order for WestJet to move into the region, it's going to need a good amount of business, not only in the summer months, but 365 days a year.
The tourism component, well, it is very important. Certainly the development of the community and the people that live in the community that go in and out day in and day out, either for business reasons or for visiting loved ones or for just getting away and getting down the road. That's the most important element of our entry into the market.
Circle tours have become a popular method of seeing the province over the last number of years. The most successful of them is the Totem Circle Tour, which includes a trip by ferry along the Inside Passage, a rail journey from Prince Rupert to Prince George, and Prince George to Vancouver.
Well, since 1996, we went to a daylight operation up here and introduced our Totem class service. We've had phenomenal growth. I would say the best recommendation I can give you is talk to the hotel companies who are at the meeting today and find out the amount of business that's been brought in. But it's probably one of the fastest growing services that we've experienced in our lifetime.
That tour started off from a ground zero in 1998 and produced something like $500,000 in sales, and in the past year about $650,000 worth of sales. So it's been very, very good for us in producing more revenue in terms of ticket sales and, again, contribution from the additional packaging services we're selling.
The run from Prince Rupert to Prince George is classed as the 4th best rail journey in the world and one of the most luxurious in all of Via's lines. That aside, the company is thinking of possible improvements to the service.
What we're looking at right now is the potential of where in Canada as a whole, maybe we can look at expanding our services where there's potential. And definitely this is an area that we're going to be looking at very closely in the future.
One thing Via is doing to improve the line and talked about at the AGM is a new program called Snow Train, which markets the Northern Corridor as a destination for the off-season.
Snow Train is basically just a branding concept. It's going out to the international marketplace with a new name to show that there is still business and tourism opportunities throughout the winter months in Canada as a whole. But it consists of having local partners like we have here in the meeting today at this association meeting, where we go and distribute the information to, let's say, international tour companies to sell this area as a destination and utilizing our services.
The province's other carrier, BC Rail, operates service in the interior and southern mainland. It has no plans in the short term to be on the Northern Corridor.
Because our line only extends to Prince George, the line that we actually control, we're not in a position to actually put a service on here as yet. We're hopeful that as we go forward with our Northwind train, that at some point we will be able to make what we call the left-hand turn and bring that train into Rupert at least occasionally, if not regularly. So that will provide us an interesting outlet, if you will, and a direct connection with the cruise ships that will be operating here, we hope.
Coupled with talks about transport were discussions surrounding partnerships on set tour packages with the various carriers. The transport companies made it quite clear that they would need the tour operators to develop and maintain those packages.
But our position is we're a supplier of train services. We're not a packager. We don't package our own product. We depend on the tour companies such as Princess Cruises, or it could be a Tauk Tours or whatever, to actually develop our programs. We supply them with a train, we put the components, the contact people from this area, for instance, who they should be dealing with, and the tour operator then does the actual packaging of the tour.
Thank you for joining us for this episode of Open Connection. The greatest distance in the existence of man is not from here to there, but the connection from his mind and heart. If we can conquer that distance, we can soar like an eagle and realize our immensity within. I'm Robert Pictou.